What's up guys, it's iTags, here to bring you another settings video to help you succeed in Season 3 Warzone as well as Modern Warfare 2. Now this video is not focused on graphics primarily because that differs from system to system. However, it is focused on settings that will help you aim better and have overall better experience when you're trying to play competitively and improve your gameplay. So first, if you start on keyboard mouse, obviously you're going to have settings set up for sensitivity and different aim speeds that you're comfortable with. I'll start by just showing you my controller settings to give you kind of a base to start out, but remember, always kind of work with what's comfortable when it comes to your aiming. However, I do have a few suggestions as we go through this. Now, I'm going to be focusing on controller because that's what I mainly play with, but a lot of these things still apply to mouse and keyboard as well. And if you have mouse and keyboard questions, you can drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. So starting out on the controller settings here, we're going to just go down the list here. I don't have any crazy button layout. You always want to turn controller vibration off. All it does is messes with your aim and can give you extra things that you don't need to worry about in gunfights. Your horizontal sensitivity, set these to whatever is comfortable. However, I recommend starting at 6.6 with a multiplier of 1. That means when you aim down your sights, it's going to be the same exact speed as your hip fire at 6.6. So if you want to slow down your ADS time when you're aimed down the scope and you want this to be slower, then you just need to lower this, 0.05, 0.1, 0.15, and just experiment with that until you get comfortable. But I recommend trying 6.6 and 1 to start off. Another important setting here to help save your thumbs, save your hands, especially in Warzone, automatic tac sprint. You want to have that enabled. You don't want to just do automatic sprint, go all the way to automatic tac sprint. It does help you compete at higher levels and saves your hands in the long run. Now for this next one, interact and reload behavior. Once again, something that's kind of personal preference. However, I have found from my experience, I like to have it set to prioritize interacting. That means if I'm standing over a gun that's on the ground that I can pick up and I need to reload my gun, if I tap the X button, it will prioritize interacting, which means I will pick up that gun. If I hold down X, it'll reload. Now, if I'm not standing over another object and I just tap X, it'll reload for me. So very important, armor plate, apply all. You always want to apply all. Whenever you hit your button to apply one armor plate, it's just going to keep applying as many plates as it can to make you full again, and it gives you the availability to cancel it at any time. Jumping over to the controller advanced settings, you want to have your target aim assist on, of course. You want to set this to default. I know a lot of prior videos when Modern Warfare 2 came out and Warzone 2 came out, everybody said Black Ops, change it to default. Black Ops has been nerfed a long time ago. Your aim response curve type, I don't know if anybody has seen the other videos from JGod and a couple others that break down how strong aim assist is in this game. You want to set your response curve to dynamic, essentially allowing you when you strafe with your left analog stick to have stronger aim assist when you are near your target, and it'll help give you that extra boost of stickiness when you're aiming at somebody. So it's a little OP, but hey, to compete right now, that's what you need to have on. Scrolling down, input dead zone. This is one that I feel a lot of people set up incorrectly because they just see shots here, they see Joe or whoever, and they set up their sensitivity based off them. Everybody's controller is different. You want to set it as low of a minimum threshold as possible without having stick drift. So for me personally, I use an Xbox Elite 2 controller. So my left stick, I want it to be as soon as I press the stick, I want it to react, but I don't want it to move my character on its own without me pressing the stick. So I was able to get it down to 0.03 before it started having stick drift at 0.02. Same for the right stick. You don't want your aim to be moving without you touching the analog stick. If you do, you have stick drift. So mine can go all the way down to 0.06 before it starts getting stick drift. You need to experiment and test with your controller to see what's comfortable and before you get stick drift. Yes, it'll be more interactive, if the lower you go, but it'll be a little too sensitive and you'll start missing your shots because it's moving on its own and you're trying to counteract it mid-fight. Left stick max, right stick max, don't worry about those. Triggers, I drop them all the way down. You want them very sensitive. As soon as you press the trigger, you want it firing. Gyro behavior, you want to make sure all of these are turned off. Don't have any of them on, turn them all off. They can mess up your aim assist. Now, this one's kind of controversial for movement players, especially if you're trying to mantle and do certain things, but I just keep this airborne mantle to partial. A lot of people, if you're playing competitive multiplayer, will recommend for you to turn off for certain jumps to be a little easier. Also, the automatic ground mantle, you want to have that turned off. Now, this one is kind of controversy because Warzone has tried to somewhat buff movement. However, it doesn't really have too much of an effect just yet. Now, they may change this in the future, but Right now the dive is still more powerful than the slide. The slide is kind of useless at this point. So you want to change this invert slide and dive behavior to inverted, which allows you to single tap your button and you will dive instead of single tap to slide. Now, if you want to slide, all you got to do is hold the button. But once again, the dive is more important in this game so far, and it will help you evade and reposition a lot of times. So change that to inverted, try it out. Plunging underwater, change this to plunge freely. Sprinting door bash, always want to have it on. Parachute auto deploy, always turn it off. You want to control your character. You don't want the game doing it for you. Now guys, if you want to stay up to date with the most helpful tips, tricks, loadouts, information dealing with Call of Duty as we progress through Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the page, show some love in the comments, and don't forget to follow me on all my social accounts, which I'll leave down below in the description. Now guys, I'm going to skip over the display and quality settings except for a handful right here down at the bottom. Generally speaking, display and quality settings for each system is going to depend on what you can run. Higher quality settings means it's going to look better, perform a little lower depending on your rig. However, if you do, lower quality settings, then you'll have higher frames and better performing. So if you want somewhere in between, you'll have to kind of play with it, do medium settings somewhere in between those two extremes. But jumping into the settings that I feel affect your competitiveness as far as Season 3 will be concerned, you want to start down here, your depth of field. You want to go ahead and turn that off. Your world motion blur and weapon motion blur, turn it off. All it does is block up your peripheral vision, so you won't be able to see things that are, off to the sides of your character when you're running. Film grain, drop that all the way to 0. And we'll jump over here to view settings. Now this tab is kind of important. So your field of view, as you can see the example on the screen here, it does show a breakdown of what you'll be able to see with each field of view and in between. So the higher your field of view, the more peripheral sights you'll have. And this is very important when it comes to Warzone. Now, me personally, I would advise that if you can get used to a higher field of view in Warzone, then do that, because the higher the field of view, the more you can see around you, and the less visual recoil you will have when you're shooting your guns at long range. So that does give you a slight advantage. Now there is still recoil obviously, but it's a little less visual, so it's not as shaky on your screen, and your crosshair, so to say, or your iron sights is a little bit smaller picture. But it will be harder to see those targets from range, if that makes sense. So the target, instead of being very zoomed in, because you're stretching your screen out, the target's gonna be really small. Now, if you're playing COD multiplayer solely, or you switch back and forth, I recommend somewhere anywhere from 100 to 110 field of view for multiplayer. I play on 105 when I'm playing multiplayer and 120 in Warzone. Your ADS field of view, I've seen a little controversy on this here recently in this Call of Duty, but I recommend playing on affected. Once again, it keeps your peripheral the same as your FOV when you aim down sights, instead of zooming in when you aim down sights. But if you feel you have trouble keeping your aim on somebody from range and you want to test out independent, go for it. But me personally, I think affected is the way to go if you want to be efficient in your gunfights from any range. Weapon field of view, this is relatively new in this Call of Duty, but for Season 3, we want to keep it set at wide so that your gun is smaller on your screen and you can see more around you. Jumping down to the camera, you want to make sure this first person camera movement is the least 50% that it can be. That way your camera's not shaking as much when you're doing different actions throughout the game. Audio settings, there's a lot of talk about sound EQ and things going around. I'm not going to give you any recommendations for or against different audio things. Each person's headphones are different, system is different. I personally don't use sound EQ. It hurts my ears. It just makes everything louder. As you can see, my volumes are kind of strange. The only thing I do recommend is turning your cinematic music volume all the way down and music volume all the way down. That way you can focus on the sounds that you hear in game, because this game's audio is not always the best, especially in Warzone. Modern Warfare 2, you want to be able to hear their footsteps and not any music or ambient things going on. So if you can stand the master volume and effects volume being super loud, that's what I recommend. Just don't hurt your ears doing it. Scrolling down to this one little setting in the audio as well, reduce tinnitus sound, turn this on. It reduces that loud ringing sound you get from flashbangs and stuns that go off in your ear over and over, especially in pubs or shipment. Keep this on, save yourself. So jumping down to the interface settings, color customization, I recommend if you've never looked at it, go ahead and play with this one. This allows you to change the color of your enemies, the objectives, your team, your squad, different things like that. Whatever it makes sense in your brain. Like for me, my team, being blue made a lot more sense and my party being green made a lot more sense. Some people have it flipped. Some people have, like, you know, red as their teammate and something crazy, but find what's comfortable for you. And this might actually help you a lot. At least stay focused on where your team is at and where the enemy's at. So for these two settings, vertical heads up display and the horizontal heads up display bounds, drop them all the way to 0. What this does is on the screen, you'll have your radar in the top left. And when you drop this down to 0, it moves that radar further in so that you can see it without having to look all the way to the corner of your screen, looking all the way. All you have to do is slightly glance and you can see the radar. It's a lot closer to you now and you don't have to look as far for information. Just a small thing that a lot of pros do that nobody pays attention to, but that'll help you tremendously. Minimap shape. Changes to square immediately. Circle cuts off a lot of the information that you can see on the map, especially on the edges, so go ahead and do it. This one was talked about. I feel like when Call of Duty first came out, this is still a very strong option to have, especially if you struggle centering your aim a lot. Center dot, go ahead and pop that on, and then you can change the scale of the center dot that you have. I prefer the default. I don't want a humongous dot taking up my screen, so I run with default, but a lot of people have really benefited from adding this larger center dot that allows them to just see at all times where am I aiming, even when I'm running, when I'm moving around, all that kind of stuff. So this will help your centering. It'll help you realize how low do you keep your aim, how high do you keep it, or are you keeping it right at like chest head height. Some bonus settings that they've added these past couple seasons: inverted flash. If you really hate the white flash that you get when you get flashbanged, then you can turn this on and now the flashbang effect will be pitch black instead. It does help your eyes a little bit, so, you know, worth trying. Parallax effects, I recommend turning it off. It's just some extra 3D effects essentially that can just mess with your system, mess with your eyes, motion sickness, that kind of stuff. So I recommend highly turning that off. Now, once again, if you want mouse and keyboard settings, or you're just curious as to what I have set up, you can ask me in the comments below. It's really just personal preference as far as, you know, slow sensitivity, fast sensitivity, those kind of things. Don't forget to show some love, subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the tips and tricks videos and any content that I put out. I do try to stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch. However, with my newborn, it's been kind of inconsistent, so please bear with me. As I get older, I'll be more consistent streaming for you guys again. I will be trying to post some new content, keeping up with the World Series of Warzone that's coming up, so be sure to stay tuned and keep the bell notification icon turned on. I'll drop all my links for my socials down below. If you have any questions, feel free to message me through the comments or at my socials. And until the next video, you guys have a great one and create your look.